we're starting right now. So what's the first thing it means? To me, youth. It's a young place, it's a young mentality, it's a young vibrancy. Really, it's about our youth. And that's us as well. I mean, things you heard in the presentation before, it's about what happened before. And thinking about what is going to happen in the future for the youth, that's a big part of what the future is all about. Hidden traditions. If you walk into neighborhoods, I will say San Jose is my birthplace. If you walk into a lot of places, you need to be introduced in order to understand what those traditions are. And there's a lot of introductions you can do, but these two guys, they're sitting there and talking about their own place. And that's what I think San Jose means. Second, it leads inevitably to a question about who we are, especially as you don't understand a lot of these places. So I think there is this who am I kind of syndrome that's going on. And I think that's okay, but there's no reason to be stopped by it. In fact, the question of who I am and who I'm going to be, that's a very interesting one. And that's one that we can take in lots of different directions. So I will say there's probably one word you hear from other cities and places around the world. The people around here, we're very diligent. We're hard workers. We're people who get things done. We're very focused on what is the task at hand. And so we never, ever give up. And I think that's a hallmark of what we do. And across distances, and actually if you think about the geographic distance that we touch on almost a daily basis, it's huge. But the distance between our ears is even bigger. So distances around the world, around the mentality we have, that's really exciting. And when we think about those distances and where they're going to project into the future, we see something very interesting, which is very San Jose, and that's localized communities. Go into neighborhoods, go into spaces, go into businesses, you find these little local. You two are a localized community. I promise you that. We have these little local places around, and when you get into them, you get introduced to them, and they become very special. But work. One of the things San Jose needs to be is work. We work, we love our work. There's a lot of things about our work that nobody else will define for us, so it's a very personal kind of enterprise. But this is a city that works. I think there's another city that has that label, but this is a city that works. And we do it together, and we do it jointly, and we also don't know where it's going to go. And so consequently, we exhibit a huge amount of insecure adolescent tendencies. We're consumed with this question of who we are, so we look at Facebook. And then we say, I'm even more confused, so I'm not going to look there. And in fact, when we look at all of these pictures, we can actually see there's a motivation for how we can proceed. So we're partially jilted, right? I mean, if you look at the big stew of life, the big stew of San Jose, we're partially jilted, we're cooking all the time. Who knows what's in there, but I'll tell you what, if I serve you a bowl, I think out of politeness, you probably would have some. But we're coming together, and that's going to be a never-ending process. At least I predict, because we're pretty polite people too. I think we're also very unappreciative, especially in the formal sense, of fluid structures. By what that, people want to know, it's this height, it's this depth. You look at a group of people, it's very fluid. Where are we going? How are we going to get there? Who's going to take us? Who knows? So I think we have this underappreciation for fluid structures. And those are the things that we can actually use to project what are our values. But I think one of the other problems we have is we have a conventional view of diversity. So they talked about the TARP today on the radio, and they said, what was one of the problems? They had a whole bunch of people getting together. They all came from different companies, but they didn't have enough diversity. So I think we need to look at it and start doing away with thinking, oh, we're not San Francisco, we're not this, we're not. What are we, right? We definitely have that, and that's okay, right? It's not only okay, that is true. We are not San Francisco. Who believes we're San Francisco? We do suffer, though, from recurring evidence that we somehow can't get past our envy. And so we do have these structures that run up. But I'll tell you, the tallest structure, it's not going to be measured in feet because our ideas create structures that will be far bigger, wider, and deeper than anything you can possibly see on the landscape. We are kind of unoriginal in our mentality. I'm telling you, if you compare the Louvre, or if you compare some of the other great structures, and then the Tinker Toys going down 5th Street, I'm telling you, that is not, to me, tremendously creative, and that's not going to stand the test of time. So I think that's one of the areas we can think about. But we are. St. Joseph. We have that heritage. You know, I was born here 55 years ago. And so if you look at how the city has developed, if you look at how the landscape has developed, you know, there are these enduring, not only symbols, but these inform our present today, and they will well into the future. We should embrace that. You know, generally speaking, if you look at San Jose and what it means to me, I think we're pretty comfortable cohabitators. You know, we're side by side, we can exist in the same space, you know, it's not just Dodgers and Giants fans, but we're very comfortable with being together. That doesn't mean we're close in a lot of cases, but we're pretty comfortable, especially as we look at the crazy places that we find ourselves. So it is a place that concessions is not a bad word, and part of what San Jose means for me is the willingness and the ability and the happiness. These are little piggies, happy to concede and be able to get something in the middle. So I think concession is one of the great things that we've practiced here for a long time. We're ag at heart. Who, you know, in this legend of Silicon Valley, they had this Friday when everybody dressed down because they should. Well, where do we learn this? I mean, I grew up cutting pots. I grew up, you know how long an alfalfa plant is? Well, it goes up to about your elbow. When you shove it down, you know, your elbow gets wet. But we're ag at heart. And so consequently, we have these great spaces to roam, mentally, emotionally, and that's really a great heritage that we've left for ourselves well into the future. We have these great spaces to roam, and that's in contrast, because we are a city of contrast. We have all this bigness of our ideas, etc., and yet we have these extremely narrow parking places. So what San Jose means to me is, who designed these parking places, and also these very narrow meeting spaces? But with our creativity, with our drive, our passion, we can overcome all of that. And we learn within these constraints how things can go. So I want to thank you for letting me share what San Jose means to me.